Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate everybody very much for stopping by. Spend a little time with me real quick. So I did change my chess legend. Some of you guys might be familiar with Alexandra Kosteniuk from Russia. She is, former women's world champion 2008 to 2010. And she is colloquially known as the chess queen. She has a website. I think it's like chessqueen.com or something. But, she teaches chess. She has a YouTube channel herself and stuff like that. So, she is nicknamed the chess queen. Anyway, I have the round 4 game for you between Anish Giri and Wesley So. And it's a really interesting game. If you guys are ready to go. Oh, yes. For my people in the Philippines, mabuhay to you. Kamusta na? Magandang umaga or magandang apon if you see this in the afternoon for you. Almasal tayo. Magalunch na tayo. Whatever you guys have rolling on. Masaya Kong Kita Kang Muli. Appreciate you guys very much for coming by. And anybody who is coming from the Netherlands, I will say hello to you and thank you for coming by and taking a look at my video. I don't think I have how are you. I think I just have those two for Dutch. Yeah. Hello and thank you. Yeah. I might get it. I don't know. I don't know how I feel. But if you guys are ready to go, let's take a look, see what we have for this game. Bam. So we got e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to b5, knight to f6. So we do have the Berlin defense. And I know, it's notoriously drawn. It's a very, tough wall. It's hard to crack. But, we will see if it holds up to its, if it holds up to its reputation. So we see castles by white. Knight takes e4, rook takes e1, knight comes to d6. We see knight takes e5. You guys already know, probably that taking bishop on b5 is deadly because of knight to c6, and you do have a double attack on this queen and on check, so we're not going to go into that. So we do see bishop to e7, bishop comes back to f1, we see knight takes e5, rook takes e5, castles, we got d4, bishop comes to f6, getting a nice little juicy tempo on this rook. We see rook down to e1, we got rook over to e8, and one of the things I'll tell you guys about, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I'm really, really bad about this myself. Just kind of playing in the game and just trading all the time. And then I get into positions. I'm like, man, why was I trading? So sometimes it's good to hold the tension and allow the opponent, to decide if they want to trade. So we do see c3 by Giri, allowing Wesley So to actually initiate the trade. So we see rook takes e1, queen takes e1, and we got knight back to e8. Knight on d6 was kind of bad because it was kind of blocking this bishop a little bit. It kind of depends on how you want to develop it. Do you want to go g6, or do you want to, get this knight out of the way and get, get the bishop on a different square. So like I said, we do have knight to e8. Knight comes to d2. We see d5. And then we do see the novelty of the game, which is knight to b3. Normally what we've seen is actually knight to f3. Is somewhat more of a natural square for the knight, but sometimes you do kind of have a hole here on c5, especially after you go c6 and stuff like that. So Giri is thinking it's going to be kind of juicy. So after knight to b3, we do see c6, we see bishop to f4, we see g6. We do have a dark squared bishop, so we're not too worried about the these light squares and stuff like that around the king because they can be defended. We see queen coming to e3. We are trying to think about maybe creep into those dark squares a little bit. The knight comes to g7, fianchettoing the knight. We see rook over to e1. We see bishop to f5. Knight comes to c5, like I mentioned earlier. We see queen to b6. And then we do see b4, just exclaiming that knight on that c5 square. Of course, now we have the bishop in a way, or we have the queen in a way, so there's no b pawn pushes. So this is actually a really, really nice square for the knight to be on. As black, really all we need to do is kind of figure out what we're going to do with our knight. And so we see a5, a3, pawn takes b4, pawn takes b4. And then we do see h5. So, we're just giving ourselves a little bit of, room here as black. And so we do see h3 by white. And then we see the very attacking rook coming to e8. So we have reached a point in the game that if you do want to pause the video, and see how Giri defends this position. Go ahead and do so. Okay, cool. So there is literally no defense needed in this position. This is one of those rare cases. Now, I wouldn't say rare, maybe like 10 to 15% of cases where it is actually legitimate to actually sacrifice your queen. So this game is featuring a queen sacrifice right now. We see queen takes e8, knight takes e8, rook takes e8. And so you're kind of thinking like, man, I mean, you know, this very deep calculation that Giri goes into while giving up his queen. So this is a complete queen sacrifice, but there is a very key move that follows up this sacrifice, and you will be seeing it here in a second. We do see check to the king on e8, and then we see king coming down to g7, and then the key move in this position is bishop to b8. Now, it might look kind of weird because you're like, what is bishop b8 doing? Well, it's actually completing like basically the stalemate of this queen, because as you guys see now, this queen does not have the ability really to move anywhere. It does not have the ability to move here, 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 or back up here. And only two options really to escape are going to be to take this pawn or take this knight. And so, like I said, the queen is literally stalemated. So this bishop move perfectly follows up this queen. So, I mean, when he's back here and he sees rook to e8, like you're calculating queen takes, knight takes, rook takes, king down. Like, so it's a nice, like, you know, 3-4 move calculation that he goes into. So we do see this. And to try to free yourself, there are a few different moves that you can make in the position. And one of the actual top moves to make in the position are actually bishop takes d4. The purpose behind bishop takes d4 is to try to undermine the protection of this pawn so that your queen can escape. And I think you guys are just like me and anybody else who, if your queen is like literally about to get lost, you're trying to throw away all of your other pieces to get your queen free. And so this is what Wesley So is trying to do in this position. But the situation is so dire that that doesn't adequately work completely. So the pawn takes on d4, and Wesley So chooses to go g5, which, you know, seems like it's giving you like, you know, kind of some free movement, freeing your pieces up just a little bit. But literally, once you went into this queen trade, this queen sacrifice, there was really nothing you can do to like win the game. Like, it was completely lost for black. So, you know, you're trying to see if you can climb out of this position as best possible. But after we do see g5, we see bishop down to e5 with check. We see king to g6, and then we do see rook to g8 with check. Now, before we go further from this position, I'm going to go ahead and back up just a touch. Because after bishop takes d4, pawn takes d4, there was the possibility, some of you guys probably were looking at the position like, hey, you did all of this to free your queen, so can't you get your queen to b4? Yes, you can. So there is a way for you to save your queen, but I'm going to show you the position that would probably result in that. Queen takes b4. We see bishop down to e5 with check, f6, rook to e7 with check, king coming up to f8, trying to attack the rook. And then we see rook takes b7, and then you have queen to e1, bishop takes f6, queen up to d2, and then rook to e7. And the thing about the situation is you are very, very down as white, as black. You only have two pieces. You have a bishop and a queen, and you actually have a bishop for a bishop, and you have the rook, the knight, and the bishop like against the queen. And that is actually just too much material for the queen, especially like guys that are playing on this level and stuff like that. You know, they have the very big, huge chess understanding to be able to match, you know, their couple of, you know, minor pieces and their rook against the queen, and can legitimately win. So the most important thing that you have to think about when you are down, you know, a queen, and you're using a rook and minor pieces against the queen is making sure that they are very, very coordinated. So as you guys can see, this bishop is being held by this pawn. This knight is being held by this pawn, and this rook. So if you just notice, everything is kind of holding each other. And this bishop is protected by the king. And this bishop doesn't have any way to penetrate in and, you know, try to like pin this bishop to this king. So this is a very one position. This is a very one position for white. So if we do back up to what we had in the game, like I said, king did come down to g6. We see rook to g8 with check. We see king to h6. And then we see rook to b8. And it is in this position that Wesley So does resign the game. There was actually a much stronger variation that you could have gone into as white instead of rook over to b8. And so after king to h6, you actually had the ability to threaten like mate coming up with h4. You know, of course, if you take here, you know, you're going to be looking at, you know, checking here, and it's just nasty. So pawn would be taken on h4. Knight would come up to d8, threatening to, you know, redirect this knight over to f6 and put, you know, the king in the mating net. So the bishop would have to take on d7, and then you would see bishop to d3. And as you guys can see, the net is closing very fast on this black king. And the only move that the computer actually gives to try to save yourself is actually queen takes d4. And the reason it's giving this is because you have checkmate threatened on f4. And this is literally the only way to protect against that mate. So you have to give your queen up. But you're still going to be getting like mated. This literally is just only postponing mate a little bit. You know, so you are, I mean, you look at the position, you're up 3 pieces to 1. So, you know, even though you're down a couple of pawns, I mean, you're still just horribly winning the game. So, like I said, after we saw rook to b8, Wesley So didn't want to see anymore. He went ahead and threw the towel in because rook takes b7 is coming. You know, it's going to be very similar to the position we saw before, where you just literally have too many pieces as white against the queen and the bishop. So that was unfortunately that game. And so it was one of the rare cases that the Berlin didn't really hold up against white, which it normally does. So unfortunately for Wesley So, he did drop that game. But he is still, actually, I think he's in 3rd place in the tournament. I haven't posted the standings yet, but he's still doing very well in the tournament. I mean, he had a really good day today. And I showed one of the games he drew, you know, I think he had some wins and stuff like that. So, you know, he's still hanging in there pretty solid. So, for my people in the Philippines, appreciate you guys very much, but I will try to get these good mornings, see if I can just shoot through them real quick. So, maayong buntag. Mayad na agahan, nainbag na biga, masancho siya kabusan, marhe na aga, buenos dias, maayong aga, mapian na uma, kapian kapuno dios, mayap a abak, I think. No, wait. Is it my, I think it is, yeah. Mapian na uma, kapian kapuno dios, mayap a abak, mapia, mayad na aga, mapia kapapita, mapia agay, I did that out of order. My big abukla, Marja na buntag, Maria mainat, Maupe na aga, Kasan yangan si elubi, and assalamu alaikum, salam, and merci beaucoup. And I really butchered that horribly. But as you guys can see, at least I'm getting through it this time instead of, you know, having to pause and look at my sheet. I don't have to look at my sheet anymore, so that's good. So I appreciate you guys very much, and I'll see y'all next time.